Hey Sprout Up, it's Otter here, and today we're going to be talking about the 3 plus 1, so 4 R's. Reusing, reducing, recycling, and broadening. So, we've kind of talked about conservation, right? Conservation is using something only as much as you need it. So, what's the opposite of conserving something? That's right, wasting it. Now, wasting something means that you use something and then you throw it away before you've actually fully used it as much as you can. And oftentimes waste ends up in the garbage or the trash. But where does the garbage go after you throw it on the curb? Some might say that the garbage is taken away by a garbage man, or maybe it just disappears. But actually, all that garbage goes to one of 2 places. The first place being a landfill. A landfill is just a giant pile of trash. And considering that every single person makes about 2,000 pounds of trash, which is like a giant polar bear, that's a lot of trash. And things like plastic and metal, they don't turn into dirt, they don't decompose, so it kind of just keeps sitting and piling up over and over and over again until there's just a giant pile of trash. And that trash ends up in our bodies of water like streams and lakes and rivers, and kind of goes in areas where people live. It gets kind of stinky, and so landfills aren't really that great. So, what do we do to reduce our ecological footprint? Well, we can reduce, reuse, recycle, and broaden. And so what does it mean to reduce something? Well, let's go to Sloth to hear about it.
Hi everyone, I'm Sloth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the first R, reduce. And reducing means buying less of something so that then you can create less waste. And that's really awesome because we only have a limited amount of resources like trees and oil, and we also don't want any of our waste to get into places like rivers and the ocean. So using less is always better. So I have a couple awesome simple swaps for you today that will help you reduce your waste. So the first one is a reusable water bottle. And we can use this water bottle instead of lots of plastic water bottles. So it's a really awesome way to reduce all that plastic that could otherwise end up in the ocean. Another awesome one is a reusable coffee cup. So here are 2 options. You could bring either to a cafe to get your coffee or hot chocolate, and you'll save a lot of disposable coffee cups in the long run. Another one is our containers for food. So you could store something like this or like this for leftovers. You could even use something like a thermos to bring your food to school. And this saves all those plastic takeout boxes because you could even bring them to a restaurant to get your takeout, or you could bring it to a restaurant to bring your leftovers home instead of a plastic box. And my last one for you today is, instead of this type of plastic wrap, which you might use to cover your food, you could use something like this beeswax wrap, which you could just wash and reuse a lot of times. So there's so many different ways you can reduce your waste. Those are some swaps, but there's also so many different other ways. Like you could try to buy less clothes because all these types of clothes are made out of plastic or other materials that we don't have an unlimited supply of. So when you buy less, it's always better for the environment.
Thanks, Sloth. So, remember, to be good environmental stewards, we need to reduce our environmental footprint. We want to make sure that the impact we have on our environment is really positive. So another thing we can do is reuse the stuff that we already have to make sure that they don't even become trash in the first place. Let's go talk to Sunflower to see how we can reuse.
Hi Sprout Up friends! My nature name is Sunflower, and I'm going to be talking to you about the second R, which is to reuse. So to reuse something means to use it over and over again without throwing it away. This way we're conserving Earth's natural resources. Remember that to conserve means to save. So when we're reusing an item, we're saving Earth's natural resources. So since we're all at home, I wanted to show you a few items that I have in my house that I've reused. So the first example is any glass jar or container. So here I have an old salsa jar where I ate all of the salsa and then I cleaned it out, and now I use it to organize my nail polish. And here I have an old jam jar where I ate all of the jam and then cleaned it out, and now I use it to organize all my pens and pencils. Another example of a reusable item that I have in my house are these reusable grocery and tote bags. So I use these whenever I need to carry something or when I go to the grocery store. This way I'm not using a plastic bag or a paper bag every single time and then throwing it away, and instead I'm reusing these. Another example of a way to have reusable items in your house is to shop at a thrift store. Now, a thrift store is a place where people who have old clothes or old items that they don't use anymore can donate them to the thrift store, and then people can come and buy them and reuse them. So here I have a few examples of things that I have gotten at thrift store. I've gotten pants and jackets and sweaters and shirts and all sorts of good stuff. So this way I wasn't buying new clothes, and instead I was reusing the clothes that already existed. So I was conserving Earth's natural resources. So hopefully this gave you an idea of some of the reusable items that you can have in your house.
Thanks, Sunflower. So, we've learned about reusing and reducing. Alright, so remember how I said there were 2 places that trash could go to? Well, we already talked about the landfill, so let's talk about the recycling plant. Now, a recycling plant isn't like a normal plant like trees or leaves or other plants that we've talked about, but it's actually just this really cool factory that we send stuff, bottles and paper and other stuff that can be recycled, and it gets turned into things that we can already use again, such as boxes or cans or even paper. Isn't that really cool? Let's head over to Sloth to hear more about what it means to recycle.
The third R is recycle. So recycling is a last resort because things can't be recycled indefinitely, and it takes a lot of resources to recycle something, but it's definitely better than throwing something into the landfill. So we're going to talk about what can and cannot be recycled. But keep in mind that the rules might be different where you live, so double check. The first thing that we're going to talk about is an aluminum can. Do you think that this can be recycled? Yes. Aluminum cans can be recycled forever, so always put them in the recycling. Keep in mind that they should be clean and dry. This big one is recycling and this one is the trash, so I'm going to put it in the recycling. Next up, we have this paper box. Can it be recycled? Yes, paper can be recycled a couple times. We're going to put that in the recycling as well. Next up, we have this plastic container. Plastic is a little tricky. Sometimes it can be recycled and sometimes it can't. So this one you'll definitely want to double check on wherever you live. But if it's hard plastic, usually it can be recycled. Now that I've cleaned it and dried it, I'm going to put it in the recycling. But what about this type of plastic? This is soft plastic. It crinkles, so that means that usually it cannot be recycled. So we're going to have to put it in the trash. Next up, we've got this glass jar. And glass is awesome because it can actually be recycled indefinitely also. It can be recycled forever just like aluminum cans. So we'll put it in the recycling. But something like this can also be reused, so I'm going to save it to reuse. And the last one is aluminum foil. It can be recycled forever also, but you want to crunch it into a ball the size of your fist and make sure that it's clean and dry.
Thanks, Sloth. Alright, so there's one more. Rotting. You know, we usually don't talk about rotting, but it's actually a pretty important way that we can reduce our ecological footprint. So let's go over to Sunflower to hear more about what rotting is.
Hi Sprout Up friends, it's Sunflower again. So, we are moving on to our fourth and final R, which is rot. Now, what do you think of when you think of the word rot? When I think of the word rot, I think of something rotting or decomposing. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. So right here, I have my composting tin. So composting is where we put any of our food scraps or anything that's compostable into the compost. And that means anything that can be put into the soil and where insects and worms will come and consume it and then create nutrients for the soil. So I have a few examples here of things that are compostable and things that are not compostable. And I have my compost tin. So So whenever my compost tin gets full, I go down to where my trash cans are, and we have a big green trash can that is the compost. And then I pour all my compost into there. And then they take it to a composting unit where they decompose it and then use it in the soil to grow new fruits and vegetables. So, right here, I have a banana peel. Now, a banana peel is compostable because it is a food scrap and it will decompose if you put it in the soil. So I'm going to put this in my compost tin. Now next, I have a container from some tomatoes that I ate. Now this is plastic, and plastic cannot be composted. So if we look at the bottom here, it can be recycled because it has that on the bottom. So this I'm going to put in my recycling bin. And here I have a wrapper from some cookies that I had. Now because this has plastic and a label here, this cannot be composted because it's not a food scrap, but it also can't be recycled. So I'm going to put this in my trash can. And finally, I have an avocado pit from an avocado that I ate. This can be composted because it's a food scrap, and if it was put in the soil, it would decompose and provide nutrients. So I'm going to put that in my compost tin. So later, when my compost tin is full, I'm going to take this and put it into the compost.
Thanks, Sunflower. So today we learned about reusing, reducing, recycling, and rotting as ways that we can use to reduce our ecological footprint. So here are some props for being such amazing environmental stewards. Don't forget to ask your teacher, parent, or guardian for a fun sheet or any additional resources from Sprout Up. And don't forget to tune in next week when we talk about community gardens. Bye!